Moments after saying I do, my husband jumped into the ocean with his wading clothes on to rescue a drowning teen. Stay with me as I tell you my story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If I could freeze a moment forever, it would be that one, standing barefoot on Clearwater Beach, heart pounding, holding Caleb Monroe's hands under the peach-tinged sky. The soft hush of the waves, the murmuring crowd, the tight but nervous squeeze in my chest, everything was perfect. I had dreamed of this since the moment I met Caleb, 4 years ago, at a volunteer cleanup drive. He was barefoot then too, holding a broken crab trap and offering a crooked smile. From then on, my world was never quite the same. Now I stood facing him in a simple silk gown, our fingers intertwined, surrounded by our closest friends and family. My best friend Alina was crying softly behind me. His brother, Jeremy, winked when Caleb adjusted his tie for the 100th time. The officiant's voice was calm and warm, floating just above the soft music. Today, we gather to witness the union of two souls, Naomi Hart and Caleb Monroe, a love that has withstood trials, celebrated joy, and today steps boldly into forever. Caleb smiled at me then, and the world narrowed to just him. That smile, confident, a little crooked, entirely his, told me we were exactly where we were meant to be. I do, I said, tears already brimming. I do, he said, voice thick with emotion. You may now. Then a scream. Help someone please, he's drowning. Everything stopped. A young girl had broken through the circle of chairs, barefoot and wild-eyed, pointing toward the ocean. My brother, he went under. The crowd spun as one. I turned too, my pulse slamming in my ears. But Caleb was already moving. Caleb, no, I called out. He threw off his suit jacket, kicked off his shoes, and ran, tie flapping, shirt billowing. In seconds, he was knee-deep in the surf. I tried to chase him, grabbing my dress and stumbling forward. But the sand sucked at my feet. My dress tangled around my legs. I screamed again, louder this time. Caleb. But he was gone, swallowed by the ocean. People ran, the crowd broke apart. Someone called 911. A lifeguard sprinted from his tower. The girl was sobbing uncontrollably now. And I just stood there, frozen, salt and fear choking me. Then movement. A blur of limbs, struggling. A boy's hand reached up. Caleb surfaced behind him, pushing the teen upward while struggling to stay afloat. A jet ski sliced through the waves. The lifeguard grabbed the boy, yanking him onto the back. Caleb tried to follow, but a wave crashed over his head. No, 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 I whispered. 2 lifeguards dove in. The next minutes were agony. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. When they dragged Caleb back, he was limp, pale, blue. They laid him down on the sand and started CPR. I dropped to my knees beside him. Please, please, Caleb, come back to me. I begged. I didn't care who heard. Please don't die, not like this, not today. 1, 2, 3 compressions. Then a cough. Water gushed from his mouth. He turned his head, gasping. Cheers broke out behind me, but all I could do was collapse into his chest, sobbing, whispering, "You idiot, my idiot, you came back." His eyes fluttered open. Still married, he croaked. I laughed through my tears. Barely. The ambulance came. I rode with him. My dress soaked, torn and heavy. My bouquet lay forgotten in the sand. It had been exactly 7 minutes since I became a wife, and I had already nearly become a widow. The ambulance rattled over uneven pavement as I clutched Caleb's hand. His breathing was shallow but steady, and a faint line flickered across the heart monitor, like a whisper I clung to. He was alive. That was supposed to be enough. But it didn't feel like enough. I sat stiff in my soaking dress. The hospital sheet the EMTs had wrapped around me already damp. The paramedic checked Caleb's vitals, and I watched like a hawk, afraid that if I blinked, he'd vanish again. The moment we reached the emergency room, nurses rushed him away. I tried to follow, but they stopped me at the doors. You need to wait, someone said. We'll update you. Wait, my husband nearly drowned in front of me, and I had to sit still. I paced for minutes, hours, I didn't know. A nurse offered me water. A security guard asked if I was okay. I said nothing to either of them. My teeth were chattering, part cold, part fear. Finally, a doctor approached. Naomi Hart. Yes, my voice cracked. He's stable. He inhaled quite a bit of water, and his oxygen levels were dangerously low when he arrived. But we've managed to get his breathing under control. He's sedated now, just to help his body rest. He's going to be okay. Relief dropped me into a chair. My body folded in half as I let go of a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding since the beach. Can I see him? Yes, just for a few minutes. The ICU room was quiet, except for the steady beep of machines. Caleb looked so small under the white sheets. His skin was pale, his lips were cracked. There was a small bandage on his forehead, and a faint bruise blooming on his jawline. I sat beside him and took his hand again. You scared the life out of me. He didn't move, but I didn't expect him to. I stayed there for hours, just watching him breathe. That night, I curled up in the uncomfortable hospital chair, holding his hand, listening to the rhythm of the machines, and whispering promises into the dark. You're going to wake up, and when you do, we're going to start again. Morning came slowly. The hospital room was dim, the blinds drawn, and the only sound was the rhythmic beep of Caleb's monitor. I hadn't slept, I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his limp body on the sand, his skin pale and his lips blue. My heart had been holding its breath ever since. I watched the way his chest rose and fell under the sheets, each breath like a fragile miracle. I hadn't changed out of my torn dress. It felt wrong to move too far from the moment we said, I do, even though everything that followed shattered the fairy tale. Around mid-morning, a nurse came in to check on him. She smiled at me gently. You should get some rest, you've been here all night. I can't leave him, I whispered. You don't have to, she said, squeezing my shoulder. But just know he's stable now, he's fighting. I nodded, but I couldn't relax. At noon, I felt his fingers twitch in mine. Caleb, I leaned forward, hope swelling in my chest. His eyelids fluttered. Slowly, groggily, they opened. The room swam in his gaze for a moment before his eyes found me. Naomi, his voice was dry, raspy, barely there. You're awake, I kissed his knuckles, tears spilling down my face again. You scared me half to death. What happened? You jumped into the ocean like a madman to save that kid. You almost drowned Caleb. His brows furrowed as he processed my words. Then he tried to sit up but winced. Don't move too fast, you hit your head. And your oxygen levels dropped for too long. They had to work to bring you back. He blinked, confused, then sighed. Is he okay, the boy? He's fine, you saved him. Caleb closed his eyes and let out a shaky breath. Good. A silence stretched between us. Not awkward, just full. Full of everything we had both been holding in. Finally I said, Caleb, you jumped in without thinking. You could have died. I couldn't just stand there. He was just a kid. And you're my husband. Do I not matter in that equation? He looked at me, and the guilt was all over his face. I'm sorry, I didn't think, I just reacted. I understood. That was the thing, I understood too well. That's the problem, Caleb. You never think when someone else is in danger. You just act, and I'm always the one left holding my breath. He didn't respond. A nurse walked in, giving us both a reason to pause the conversation. Caleb was checked, and they scheduled a CT scan to confirm there was no swelling in his brain. When she left, I reached for his hand again. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just terrified because I love you too much to lose you. And yesterday, I thought I did. He looked at me for a long time before whispering, I love you too, Naomi, and I promise I'll be more careful, for you, for us. We stayed like that, holding each other's gaze, tethered in silence by something deeper than words. This wasn't how our marriage was supposed to begin, but it was how it truly began. Together, 3 days after the wedding that almost wasn't, I stood in the hospital's family lounge, wringing my hands while we waited for visitors. The nurses had just moved Caleb out of ICU to a private recovery room, and he was finally strong enough to sit up, even joke a little, but I could still see the weariness in his eyes. The ocean had taken a lot out of him. The door creaked open, and in walked a boy and a girl. The boy looked about 16, skinny, with hair that stuck out like it had been air-dried in a rush. His arm was wrapped in a soft sling, and he had a noticeable limp. The girl, maybe 13, hovered protectively beside him. Their parents followed closely behind, a couple in their 40s with grateful eyes and tired shoulders. The mother was clutching a gift bag, like it was the only thing holding her upright. Caleb looked up from his bed and offered a small smile. You must be Jason. The boy nodded, cheeks flushing pink. Yeah, that's me. I just wanted to say thank you. I don't even know how to. You're here, that's enough, Caleb said gently. Jason's mother stepped forward and placed the gift bag on the bedside table. We brought a few things, just some snacks, and books, and a photo. She pulled out a framed picture of Jason, beaming in his school's swim team jersey. He hasn't been in the water in 2 years. Not since the incident at the lake. Jason lowered his eyes. I've been scared ever since. I didn't think I'd ever try again. But Ellie, he glanced at his sister. She dared me, I thought I could do it. But the moment I felt the pull. You don't need to explain, Caleb said softly. The ocean is powerful. You're lucky you had her watching you. I didn't mean to ruin your wedding. Ellie said, looking at me. I just panicked. I couldn't find a lifeguard, and I saw your husband standing up there and you did exactly what you were supposed to do. I told her, you saved your brother. Caleb just happened to be the closest superhero. Caleb chuckled, minus the cape. Jason shuffled closer to the bed. I don't remember much, just the panic. Then this hand grabbing mine. I thought I was done for, but you didn't let go. Caleb's voice softened. I wasn't going to. Jason looked like he was on the edge of tears. Thank you for not giving up on me. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Jason's father stepped forward next. You gave us our son back. I don't think I'll ever have the words to express what that means. But I want you both to know we're here. If you ever need anything. Caleb looked at me, then back at the family. Just take care of him, that's more than enough. After they left, the room fell quiet again. I didn't think I'd ever see that kid again, Caleb whispered. He looked at you like you were magic. He turned his head to me. You know what's funny? I was terrified. I've never felt water like that. Cold, heavy, like it wanted to pull me down and keep me there. But you didn't stop. I didn't think about it. I just saw him disappear and I moved. I climbed into the chair beside his bed and rested my head on the edge of the mattress. You didn't just move, you chose him. He was quiet a moment before he said, would you rather I hadn't? I hesitated. No, I'd never ask you not to save someone. I wish you hadn't had to almost die doing it. He nodded slowly, me too. That night, I looked at the photo they left, the one of Jason in his swim team shirt. I placed it on Caleb's tray table, next to his water cup and his heart monitor, a reminder of what we gained and what we almost lost. By the time Caleb was well enough to sit up in bed without wincing, the world had already decided we were a story worth telling. It started with a single photo, Caleb soaked and shirtless, lying on the sand, surrounded by paramedics and lifeguards. Someone had taken it right after he coughed up seawater, right after the CPR worked. Then came the video, the vows, the scream, the sprint, the moment Caleb jumped in. It was cinematic, heroic, viral. We were on the news before we even made it home. The first call came from a morning show. They wanted us to appear via Zoom. Still in our hospital room, Caleb declined. The second call was from a news outlet offering money for an exclusive interview. We declined that too. But the story wouldn't stop spreading. Groom saves drowning teen moments after saying he do. Wedding day hero, Caleb Monroe's brave leap into the ocean. People flooded our social media pages. Some sent love, prayers, and stories of survival. Others asked for interviews or podcast appearances. A few sent wedding gifts addressed to the hero couple. It was surreal and exhausting. I wasn't angry exactly, just tired of smiling when I didn't feel okay. Tired of pretending I had processed everything. People loved the idea of our wedding being unforgettable, but they didn't know how close it came to being tragic. They didn't see me pacing the hospital floors, didn't hear me whispering to a sleeping Caleb, begging him to wake up. Caleb tried to take it in stride. He chuckled at some of the headlines. He even posed for a photo with one of the nurses who called him Superman in a suit. But at night, I could feel it. He'd get quiet, still, his eyes distant. The boy, Jason, had lived, but a part of Caleb hadn't come back to shore with him. One evening, we sat on the couch at home, days after he was discharged. Our living room was filled with wedding decorations we never got to use. Centerpieces, unopened champagne, the framed seating chart still leaning against the wall. I poured tea and handed him a cup. Do you ever wish we could go back? I asked. To before the wedding. To that morning, when we were just two people in love, not a headline. He looked at me over the rim of his cup. Yeah, sometimes. We sat in silence. The tea cooled between us. Then Caleb reached into his back pocket and pulled out something I hadn't seen in days. His vow card. He unfolded it carefully. I never got to finish reading this. Want to hear it? I nodded. He cleared his throat. I promise to love you when things are easy, and especially when they're not. I promise to walk beside you, not ahead or behind. And when the world feels like it's crashing in, I'll be your breath, your anchor, your shore. Tears welled in my eyes. I guess I had to prove that early, he added with a soft smile. I leaned in and kissed his temple. You did, I whispered. Now let's figure out how to breathe again, together. The first week home should have been about rest and recovery. Instead, it was filled with careful steps around each other, like we were both afraid of saying the wrong thing. Caleb slept a lot, understandably so, but sometimes I'd find him wide awake, staring at the ceiling like he was floating somewhere else. When I asked what he was thinking, he'd say, nothing. And I'd nod, pretending I believed him. I cleaned the kitchen 3 times in one day, just to keep my hands busy. I organized the leftover wedding favors, tucked away the untouched decorations, boxed up gifts from people who still thought we were honeymooning in the Maldives. We hadn't even made it to the reception. One night, I sat beside him on the couch, scrolling through pictures. Someone emailed us from the ceremony. Us under the arch, me laughing. Caleb smiling wide, just before the scream. "Do you want to look at these?" I asked. He glanced over and gave a small smile. "Not yet." I nodded and put the phone down. We didn't argue, we just drifted. It wasn't until the fourth night that I finally said it. "I miss you." He looked up from the couch, startled. "I'm right here," he said. "Not really." I crossed my arms, unsure whether I was ready for the conversation I'd just started. "You saved someone's life, Caleb. But you're acting like you lost yours." He sat up straighter. "I didn't ask for any of this attention." "I know, but you haven't been with me either." "Not fully, you're quiet, you're somewhere else." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know how to explain it. I keep hearing the water. I feel it in my lungs. That panic, I don't know how to turn it off." I moved closer and put my hand on his chest. "Then let me in, let me carry some of it." "I don't want you carrying that," he said softly. "I'm your wife," I replied. "That's what this means." He looked at me for a long time, eyes glassy, then he pulled me into his arms. We sat like that for what felt like hours. No words, just closeness. The distance didn't vanish overnight, but for the first time since the beach, we were reaching for each other again. The next day, he asked if we could take a walk. We stayed away from the beach, just a loop around the block. He limped slightly from his healing ankle, but he held my hand the entire way. At one point, he stopped under a jacaranda tree and said, "I didn't realize how much I need this. Not just to breathe but to move forward. With you." I squeezed his hand. "Then let's keep moving, even if it's slow." Caleb recovery didn't even take up to 1 month. We fixed another wedding after he recovered. People sponsored it, and we finally went for honeymoon.